So we are reading Zero Limits by Joe Vitale and Dr. Hugh Lin. We are on chapter 3, our first conversation, page number 21 of the book and 19 of the PDF.
Our first conversation. Every man takes the limits of his own field of vision for the limits of the world. Arthur Schopenhauer.
So this is very, I think this is a very important saying, that today we are limited by our perception. So we need to expand our perception if we need to expand our vision. Okay, so we are restricted by our limits of our perception.
I finally spoke to Dr. Hugh Lin for the first time on October 21st, 2005. His full name is Dr. Ihalekala Hugh Lin, but he told me to call him E. Yes, the letter in the alphabet. Okay, I can do that. E and I probably spent an hour talking on our first phone call. I asked him to tell me the complete story of his work as a therapist. He explained that he worked at Hawaii State Hospital for 3 years. The ward where they kept the criminally insane was dangerous. Psychologists quit on a monthly basis. The staff called in sick a lot or simply quit. People would walk through that ward with their backs against the wall, afraid of being attacked by patients. It was not a pleasure place to live, work, or visit.
So what is he implying? That it was a very, very depleted kind of a place, and most people did not survive that place. Okay, they could not stay there.
Dr. Hugh Lin, or E, told me he never saw patients professionally. He never counseled with them. He agreed to review their files. While he looked at those files, he would work on himself. As he worked on himself, patients began to heal.
So now this is a very important part of this entire process. He clearly states that he never saw the patients, but who did he work on? He worked on himself. So the entire premise of this entire book is basically that anything that comes into your awareness, you become responsible for. So you work on yourself, and because what is happening in you is in resonance with whatever is happening out there, if you heal yourself, that other situation or person or thing automatically starts to get healed. So he clearly says he would work on himself, and as he worked on himself, the patients began to heal.
This became even more fascinating when I learned the following. After a few months, patients who had been shackled were being allowed to walk freely. He told me. Others who had been heavily medicated were getting their medications reduced, and those who had been seen as having no chance of ever being released were being freed. I was in awe. Not only that, he went on, but the staff began to enjoy coming to work. Absenteeism and turnover disappeared. We ended up with more staff than we needed because patients were being released and all the staff were showing up to work. Today, that ward is closed.
So what happened? As he healed himself, the resonance in the environment, in all the patients, in all the staff, everything started to change. So when he healed himself, the environment totally took a transformation, and everything started to come into equilibrium or equanimity. And then everything started to fall into place. And naturally, then, since there were no patients, the ward closed because all the patients were released.
This is where I had to ask the million-dollar question. What were you doing within yourself that caused those people to change? I was simply cleaning the part of me that I shared with them, he said.
So now this is important, right? I was simply cleaning the part of me that I shared with them. So what does this imply? He was cleaning that part of himself or his field, which had a resonance with the field of all those patients that whose files he was looking at.
I didn't understand. Dr. Hewlin explained that total responsibility for your life means that everything in your life, simply because it is in your life, is your responsibility. In a literal sense, the entire world is your creation.
So now this is again a Vedantic principle where we say that we are responsible, or our desires is what creates our environment. It creates our world. So he's clearly saying over here that anything that comes into your life or you become aware of, you are responsible for. And since you create your universe, it means that you have created it, right? And that means that everything around you is your own creation.
View, this is tough to swallow. Being responsible for what I say or do is one thing. Being responsible for what everyone in my life says or does is quite another. Yet, the truth is this: if you take complete responsibility for your life, then everything you see, hear, taste, touch, or in any way experience is your responsibility because it is in your life. That means the terrorist, the president, the economy, anything you experience and don't like is up for you to heal. They don't exist, in a manner of speaking, except as projections from inside you.
So, so once again, if it comes into your awareness, that means you are responsible for it. Very simple. Because your projection is what is creating whatever is happening around you.
The problem isn't with them, it's with you. And to change them, you have to change yourself.
So,
Ah,
so beautifully said over here, right? And this is something that we must remember. To change them, you have to change yourself. Now, most of the time, when we are doing any kind of healing, when we are doing any kind of, when we are giving advice to someone, we are not working on ourselves. We are working on the person concerned. But it is very important to work on ourselves, because you see, again, the world follows, there's a resonance with everything. So like that story goes, that someone came to Buddha with a problem, but he was doing that same thing, so he could not tell him not to do it. Okay, so first he left what he was going to tell this guy to leave, and then he told him. So unless you change yourself, you cannot change the other guy. So this becomes very, very important. We have to understand this. And especially as parents, you cannot tell your children not to do something that you're doing yourself. So you have to lead by example. And this is clearly what it is saying. To change them, you have to first change yourself.
I know this is tough to grasp, let alone accept or actually live. Blame is far easier than total responsibility. But as I spoke with Dr. Hewlin, I began to realize that healing for him and in Ho'oponopono means loving yourself. If you want to improve your life, you have to heal your life. If you want to cure anyone, even a mentally ill criminal, you do it by healing yourself. I asked Dr. Hewlin how he went about healing himself. What was he doing exactly when he looked at those patients' files? I just kept saying, I'm sorry and I love you, over and over again, he explained. That's
So,
it.
So this pulls up a very, very important point, right? He says that healing for him in Ho'oponopono means loving yourself. How much do we love ourselves? We cannot love someone else if we don't love ourselves. We are so critical of ourselves. We are constantly beating ourselves down, right? We have to stop that. We have to start becoming aware of it. And this is not from an egocentric point of view. It is a more from a compassionate point of view, operating from the right side of the grid, not from the left side of the grid. And then when you start loving and clearing yourself, you start healing everything around you.
That's it. That's it. It turns out loving yourself is the greatest way to improve yourself. And as you improve yourself, you improve your world. As Dr. Hewlin or E worked at the hospital, whatever came up in him, he turned over to divinity and asked that it be released. He always trusted. It always worked. Dr. Hewlin would ask himself, what is going on in me that I have caused this problem? And how can I rectify this problem in me?
So this becomes extremely important here. Whatever came up to him, so whatever came up in his awareness, he turned it over to divinity. So what was he doing? He was going into an altered state of mind, into an altered state of consciousness, and releasing it into that state of consciousness and trusting that whatever needs to happen will happen. So you get into allowing, you get into that trusting mode where you allow the divinity or that expanded state of consciousness to do whatever is the best for all. So win-win situation for all to manifest, and doing it with that immense amount of faith, immense amount of gratitude and trust. Whatever he wanted started to manifest because his will started to get connected with the will of divinity. Okay, so that shift, and when it rectified in him, it rectified outside him also.
Apparently, this method of healing from the inside out is what is called self-identity, Ho'oponopono. There appears to be an older version of Ho'oponopono that was heavily influenced by missionaries in Hawaii. It involved a facilitator who helped people heal problems by talking them out. When they could cut the cord of a problem, the problem vanished. But self-identity, Ho'oponopono, didn't need a facilitator. It's all done inside yourself. I was curious and knew I would understand this better in time.
So, so the distinction between the two processes, one is empowering, the other is being dependent, right? So empowerment is always better. You learn the technique and then you learn how to use it for yourself. That is so beautiful.
Dr. Hewlin has no materials on his process yet. I offered to help him write a book, but he didn't seem interested. There is an old video available which I ordered. He also said to read The User Illusion by Tor Nortanders. Since I'm a bookaholic, I instantly jumped online and ordered it from Amazon. When it arrived, I devoured it.
So incidentally, we have this book in the library. I think I've gone through half of it.
The book argues that our conscious mind don't have a clue what is happening. Nortranders writes, the fact is that every single second, millions of bits of information flood in through our senses, but our consciousness processes only perhaps 40 bits a second at most. Millions and millions of bits are condensed to a conscious experience that contains practically no information at all.
Now, this is important over here, right? So we keep talking in the workshops also, our conscious mind and the bigger mind. So where are you operating from? From here or from here? Now this guy, what he's saying very clearly here, can only process 40 bits of information a second. But this guy can process umpteen number of bits of information at the same time. Okay. But what are we consciously aware of? Only this guy. In fact, when you see movies on the screen, the movie, each frame is run at 40 frames a second. That is why we see it as a continuous picture. If that speed is reduced or hastened, you will start seeing the lines between the frames in the movies. So our conscious mind is only processing 40 bits of data. Today, wherever we walk in, we are seeing colors, we are seeing shapes, we are smelling smelling smells, we are feeling the tastes, we are seeing all the visuals which are there, we are hearing sounds. Just imagine the kind of data which is being processed by our system, but we are consciously aware of only 40 bits of data.
As I understood Dr. Hewlin to say, since we don't have any true awareness of what is happening in any given moment, all we can do is turn it all over and trust. It's all about 100% responsibility for everything in your life. Everything. He says his work is about cleaning himself. That's it. As he cleans himself, the world gets clean because he is the world. All outside of him is projection and illusion.
So since we know so little, we have to trust in this guy. So even in the workshops, we constantly say there's a very thin line between this guy and this guy. You have to know the feel of what this guy is saying. Only then you will connect to that guy, right? Now over here, he says, since we know so little, we might as well trust this guy and allow this guy to function rather than getting in the way. So basically what he's saying is that we need to step out of the way and allow divinity to do its work.
While some of this sounded Jungian, in the sense that the outer that you see is the shadow side of your own life, what Dr. Hewlin seemed to be describing was beyond all of that. He seemed to be acknowledging that everything is a mirror of yourself, but he also was saying that it is your responsibility to fix everything you experience and from the inside of yourself by connecting to the divine. For him, the only way to fix the outer anything is by saying, I love you to the divine, which could be described as God, life, the universe, or any number of terms for that collective higher power.
So again, trusting, connecting, allowing, these are the key words over here.
View. This was quite a conversation. Dr. Hewlin didn't know me from Adam, but he was giving me plenty of his time and confusing me along the way. He's almost 70 years old and probably a walking guru to some and a nutcase to others. I was thrilled to have spoken with Dr. Hewlin for the first time, but I wanted more. I clearly didn't understand what he was telling me, and it would be really easy to resist him or dismiss him. But what haunted me was the story of his using this new method to heal so called throwaway cases, such as mentally ill criminals.
So if something works, you've got to pay attention. It's as simple as that.
I knew Dr. Hewlin had an upcoming seminar, and I asked him about it. What will I get out of it? You will get whatever you get, he said. Well, that sounded like the old ESA training of the 1970s. Whatever you get is what you were supposed to get. How many people will be at your seminar? I asked. I keep cleaning, so only the people ready to be there will be there, he said. Maybe 30 or 50, I never know. Before we ended our call, I asked E what the signature on his emails meant. POI means peace of I, he explained. It is the peace that surpasses all understanding. I didn't understand what he meant at the time, which today makes perfect sense.
So, so really beautifully put. He keeps cleaning. He really doesn't care as to how many people turn up. And he's very clear that when you come to the seminar, you're going to get what you need to get. I think I need to start using these phrases. And peace of I means that inner peace, the deep inner peace, which no one can touch, which is what we actually are at the end of the day.
The shocking truth about intentions. Our subjective inner life is what really matters to us as human beings.
Sorry, Bhaiya.
Yeah.
One question. He asked about the criminals. That how did he do with the criminals? So what was Mr. Hewlin said that he just said Ho'oponopono to them?
Correct. No. Again, please, this is a big mistake that people make when using Ho'oponopono. He is very clearly saying that I did nothing with the patients. I just cleaned what occurred to me by saying, I love you. He says over here, I kept saying, I am sorry. I love you over and over again. So whatever he saw in the patient's file and what was vibrating in his field, he just kept saying sorry and I love you to that. And using that process, he was clearing and cleaning himself. And as he cleared and cleaned himself, because he was doing it in reference to what was happening to him by reading the patient's file, the patient also got cleared. Okay, this is what was
understood.
What was the thing?
Okay.
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 Yes, Raghuji.
Just want to say that he was always addressing the universe or God or whatever it is, not the patient or his problems. Or
Correct.
he was just always putting this question: "I love you, please forgive me," etc. to the universe or to the.
So he was doing it to the universe, but more he was clearing his own field.
Yes.
So what
yes.
was occurring to him, he was actually clearing that.
Yes,
That is
yes.
what the basic premise is.
Just want to.
So he was not healing the other person.
No, he was not.
Yeah. Yes, Ruchira. Ruchira.
I wanted to ask. I've read this book इतना जितना आप लोग पढ़ा रहे इससे थोड़ा सा, but I wanted to know कि इसका मतलब ये जो बार-बार बोलता है, he was actually getting involved with the person. Suppose now if I want to get myself clear, so he would imagine his body in tune with my body and then he would clear. How you can? I mean, like
No.
सारे prisoners का what I have understood, I was reading, मैं 2-3 बार ये पैराग्राफ को पढ़ी तो मेरे को ये ऐसा लगा कि जैसे अपने पुराने जमाने साईं बाबा वगैरह जो है ना लोगों का दुख हर लेते थे तो उनका पेन वो समझते थे तभी वो उनका दुख है तो मेरे को तो यही लगा कि he must be doing, but then how is he able to do for so many people, like so many prisoners? I was getting a little confused with
one
that.
second. Let us understand what he was doing very clearly. Okay. What he was doing was he was picking up a file of one patient, reading that file. Now, by reading that file, he became aware of what was happening with that patient. So a resonance, because he knew something about that patient as to what was there in the file, it created a resonance in his field. Because it came into his field, it came into his awareness, right? Now, what he started doing was whatever has come in his field, he started clearing that up by saying, I am sorry, I love you. And clearing that. Now, because that thing which was there in his field was created because he had read the file of that patient, and the patient's file represented the patient, since he cleaned it in himself, it automatically cleared the patient also, because what was happening in him represented the patient. So he didn't clear the patient, he cleared what was happening in him. Okay?
But doesn't
So-
you think, don't you think it's defying the law of karma? कर्मा बोलते जो आदमी खुद करता है वो उसका भोगता है, इसका माँ बाप भी उसका नहीं भोगता है, जो बच्चा करेगा वो बच्चा को ही भोगना, माँ बाप करेगा. तो it is how is he, मैंने when you read,
why are we treating karma as a punishment? What makes you think that it was not karmically destined that the prisoners would come in, I mean the Dr. Hugh would come in contact with the files of the patients and he would clear them? That is also karma. So who are we to define what is karma and not karma? So anything good that is happening to you is not a good thing that is happening, and you have to be punished for whatever you are doing. But again, how do you know that where is the karma coming from? As today you are coming to awareness and you may be getting something, you may not be getting something. Now, if you get something, that means that you are not going through your punishment because it is not karmically destined. So everything is karma ना. अगर वो जिंदगी में आया है तो वो भी तो कार्मिकली आया है, नहीं तो आता ही नहीं. अच्छा, आ भी गया और you have joined. Now today someone told you about awareness. You could have not joined. Who's telling you that you had to join? Now where is the karma? Are you getting what I'm saying?
yeah.
So why are we always treating karma as a punishment? I can't understand this. Even the good things that are happening to us is happening because of resonance, right? If you are doing something, it's creating a resonance in the field, and that is what is generated in your life. So when we say that from the Vedantic principle, when we are saying your prarabdha is what you're going to experience in this life. So prarabdha is what? Your desires. Your desires come because of your thought or your vasanas. So that is manifesting in your life because you wanted to experience that. So who is to say that the prisoners did not want to be healed?
Correct.
You get that?
मतलब ये डॉक्टर ह्यू लेन जो था, he must have been a very very divine सिद्ध person जो अपने लोग में महात्माओं को
Arey, madam, all of us are divine Siddh people. We just don't know it. नहीं समझ में आया?
हाँ.
We are all divine Siddh people. We all can do it. It's just that we don't believe we can do it and we don't trust that we can do it. The moment we go into that trust, we start allowing. So what are we talking about here? Stepping out of the way and allowing our true nature to come out. So what are we looking at? When we are doing the workshops, we are getting the tools that we are learning. We are expanding our consciousness so that our awareness starts to expand. We start observing more than what we normally observe. But that is something you got to experience. So that's why I'm keeping on telling you, join the workshop.
Sure.
Yes, Meenaji?
Bhaiya,
Yes.
Bhaiya,
Yes, Anju.
so then when he read the file, he kept on saying, "I am sorry, I love you,"
Correct.
but he didn't say Ho'oponopono, is it?
अरे Ho'oponopono matlab kya hua? Ho'oponopono is a process. So each of those words mean the same thing ultimately. You're coming to zero. He's saying over here, he just told him that I keep saying I'm sorry and I love you. The moment you
Okay.
start saying that, you're moving to the right side of the grid. And then the
Okay.
manifestation starts to take place.
और इसका
Okay.
जीरो का मतलब क्या हुआ निकेत जी? लाइक कमिंग टू जीरो मींस कि आपका जो थॉट प्रोसेस है पूरा आप एकदम शून्य कर दो एंड देन यू स्टार्ट क्लियरिंग, और व्हाट इज दिस?
अभी तक अपने वहां पहुंचे नहीं है, तो लेट्स टेक इट वन स्टेप एट अ टाइम.
अच्छा, ओके.
Please put up your hand.
So the first thing is that we need to first read what he's talking about. So the first premise is very clear that he is not healing the patient. He is healing the awareness which is there in his own field, and he is clearing that. That's it. Nothing more than that. Okay. Yes, Meenaji, you're saying something? Meenaji, you're saying something. Your hand is up.
Hello.
Meenaji, we can't hear you.
Take off your specs.
Meenaji, we can't hear you.
Please take off your specs.
Chalo, Shimangla, I think you're on.
I will call your mother. I will call your father to meet you.
Shimangla, you're on.
The shocking truth about intentions.
Meet you.
Our subjective inner life is what really matters to us as human beings. Yet we know and understand relatively little of how it arises and how it functions in our conscious will to act.
Acha,
Benjamin
Meenaji,
Libet, Mind
Meenaji,
Time. I think
Meenaji, can you please mute yourself? You're constantly getting unmuted.
Aditya, why you do that?
I'm sleeping.
Why you do that?
Yeah. So Shimangla, just go through that again.
The shocking truth about intentions. Our subjective inner life is what really matters to us as human beings. Yet we know and understand relatively little of how it arises and how it functions in our conscious will to act. Benjamin Libet, Mind Time.
So this is a very important thing. Okay. So again, I'm repeating this. I've repeated this before. When we were holding the Vastu class, what we were doing was I used to draw a straight line. And then I used to ask people that, tell me, does this line have energy or not? And we used to get very diverse answers. Now, the fact of the matter is, every action that took place to create that line was represented by that line. So I had to turn around, I had to pick up a pen, I had to use my other hand to open the cover of the pen and then drew the line. So all these actions were in the line. Now, the question now becomes, is that from where did the thought to draw the line come about? So when you're looking at that, where did the frontal action took place? It took place from this guy, but the thought to draw the line came from the bottom guy, right? So where is our intention actually coming from? It is actually coming from below the line. And when we are doing biogeometry, we see that there is a zero state before the line. They call it BG3 state, where an energy field is created in front of the line before the line gets created. And the other fact is that you can also measure where the line had started from, because the energy field which is there in where the line starts from is different from where the line ends. Okay, so he says over here, our subjective inner life is what really matters to us human beings, because that is what we are perceiving. We are not perceiving anything else. The subjective state, what we are seeing and what we are observing is what matters. Yet we know and understand relatively little of how it arises and how it functions in our conscious will to act. So how are we acting? We really don't know. Okay, it comes from below the line.
After that first call with Dr. Hewlin, I eagerly wanted to know more. I asked him about the seminar he was doing a few weeks later. He didn't try to sell me on it. He said he was constantly clearing, so only the right people went to it. He didn't want a crowd. He wanted open hearts. He trusted that divinity, his favorite term for the power bigger than all of us, yet all of us, would bring the right arrangement.
So again, he's operating from trust. He trusts that whatever will happen for the best.
I asked my friend Mark Ryan, the man who first told me about Dr. Hewlin, if he wanted to attend. I offered to pay his way as a gift for telling me about this miracle and miracle worker. Mark agreed, of course. I did a little more research before the trip. I wondered if this therapist method had anything to do with Huna, a popular healing method from Hawaii. As I read, I learned it had nothing at all to do with it. Huna is the name that entrepreneur turned author Max Freedom Long gave his version of Hawaiian spiritualism. He claimed to have learned a secret tradition from Hawaiian friends while working as a school teacher in Hawaii. He founded the Huna Fellowship in 1945 and later published a series of books, one of the most popular being The Secret Science Behind Miracles. While fascinating, Long's work had nothing to do with the therapist I was investigating. As I was beginning to learn, the therapist was practicing something Long had never heard of, at least not in the way Dr. Hewlin practiced it. As I kept reading and learning, my curiosity deepened. I could hardly wait for the day I would fly out and meet the healer himself. I flew out to Los Angeles, met with Mark, and went to Calabasas, California. Mark showed me Los Angeles before doing so, and we had a great time. But we both wanted to meet the man we had heard so much about. While Mark and I had stimulating and deep conversations over breakfast, what we both wanted was the seminar. When we went to the event room, we found a line of about 30 people. I kept trying to stand on my toes so I could see over everyone's head. I wanted to see the healer. I wanted to see the mystery man. I wanted to see Dr. Hewlin. When I finally made it to the door, Dr. Hewlin greeted me. Aloha, Joseph, he said, extending his hand. He was soft-spoken, yet with charisma and authority. He wore Dockers, sneakers, an open shirt, and a business jacket. He also wore a baseball cap, which I later learned is his trademark.
So again, like most people who are really there, you'll find most of them to be soft-spoken with a charisma and an authority. Most of these highly spiritual people will be very cool, calm, very composed, very in their center, very grounded. You know, this is a hallmark of a truly spiritual person. And another thing, they really don't bother, most of them, they're really not bothered about what they are dressing and how they are dressing. Most of them, I'm not saying all of them, but most of them, a truly spiritual person will really not be bothered because that really doesn't concern him.
Aloha, Mark, he said to my friend. There was small talk as he asked about our flight, how long it took to get from Texas to Los Angeles, and so on. I loved this man instantly. Something about his quiet confidence and grandfatherly style of being made me resonate with him. Dr. Hewlin likes to start on time. As soon as the event began, he called on me. Joseph, when you delete something from your computer, where does it go? I have no idea, I replied. Everyone laughed. I'm sure they had no idea either. When you erase something from your computer, where does it all go? He asked the room. To the recycle bin, someone shouted out. Exactly, Dr. Hewlin said. It's still on your computer, but it's out of sight. Your memories are like that. They are still in you, just out of sight. What you want to do is erase them completely and permanently.
So this is a very, very good example, right? When we delete something from the computer, it goes in the recycle bin and then it stays there. So till it is there in the recycle bin, you can actually start to retrieve it back. It can be bought back. But once you delete it from the recycle bin, then you can't bring it back. Now, the idea here is that most of us are operating from the conscious mind, and the conscious mind only operates out of memory. It cannot operate in any other way. So it is operating from whatever you have experienced and whatever you know. When you go into the altered state, that is when the inspiration starts to come in. Shimangla, please unmute.
I found this fascinating, but I had no idea what it meant or where it was going. Why would I want memories permanently deleted? You have two ways to live your life, Dr. Hewlin explained, from memory or from inspiration. Memories are old programs replaying. Inspiration is the divine giving you a message. You want to come from inspiration. The only way to hear the divine and receive inspiration is to clean all memories. The only thing you have to do is clean.
So what does this clearly mean, right? If I have too many thoughts in my mind, then if a observation comes or another stimulus comes, I am unable to perceive it because there's too much of clutter in my mind. I cannot see it. So now if I have too many memories, how am I going to see another drop which has come in? So when we are going into the altered states of consciousness, it becomes very important to clear ourselves, to clean ourselves. Unless we are clear, we go into that state of no thought where that balance is there. And again, the example that I keep using, if I throw a pebble into a sea in storm, what's going to happen? If I throw the same pebble into a pond which is totally still, everything will happen. Okay, so what he's talking about here is that when we clear out the memories from our system, we allow that inspiration which comes from below the line or comes from divinity to start, we become aware of that inspiration. If we are always operating out of memory or there's too much of clutter in the system, we are not going to even perceive that inspiration which is coming in or that download which is coming in.
Dr. Hewlin spent a lot of time explaining how the divine is our zero state. It's where we have zero limits, no memories, no identity, nothing but the divine. In our lives, we have moments of visiting the zero limit state, but most of the time we have garbage, what he calls memories, playing out.
So what does this mean? Now, today, most of the time, we have polarization. We've got duality, yes and no. This is right, this is wrong, right? But it all comes out from a center which has no right and wrong. Everything just is. And that is a state of all possibilities. That is that zero state. So when we are going into these expanded states, and we are connecting with divinity, we are connecting with that state of consciousness in which all possibilities exist. It's just there. There is no this and that. It's just there. That is the state from where that everything manifests. So the zero state is where all creation actually takes place. Now, once it leaves that state, then you start getting polarization, the right and wrong, negative, positive, all those things start to happen. But to maintain these two also, that center has to still be present. So divinity, the zero state, is always present. It's just that we are not aware of it. Why? Because we are focusing our attention on the polarity, on the polarization, where we are right, wrong, tall, short, dark, light. We are focused on that. We are not compressing it and coming into the zero state.
Bhaiya, can you just repeat this, please, once again?
So, okay, let me read this, okay?
Yeah.
Dr. Hewlin spent a lot of time explaining how the divine is our zero state. It is where we have zero limits. Now, what did I say? When we go into the zero state, there are no limits because all possibilities exist in the zero state. Okay, there are no
Zero
memories.
states, zero state is no memory.
No, no, no. Please don't equate it like that. In the zero state, there is no memory because all possibilities exist in the zero state. So all manifestation comes out of the zero state. Now, okay, no identity. When there is duality, then there is identity. When there is polarization, then there is identity. In the zero state, everything is one. You go into a state of oneness where everything exists at the same time in the same place and everything is there, right? Nothing but the divinity. In our lives, we have moments of visiting the zero state, but most of the time we have garbage, what he calls memories playing out. So whatever is actually playing out in your life is the result of your past desires or your vasanas. Okay, those are your memories. Now, when you look at it from the Vedantic principle, your prarabdha is what is playing out in this current life. Your sanchit vasanas are what is the pending desires which you have, which is carrying on. What we are talking about, karmic desires, right? That is carrying on. Now, the day we actually clear up all our vasanas, we hit the zero state. And that is what you could call the moksha also. Now, over here, what is he saying? That at times we have those gaps which get created where we can visit the zero state. But most of the time, where is our attention focused? It's on the world of duality. It's in the world of Maya. So when you transcend Maya, when you transcend duality, that is when you can hit the zero state. But the first step to hit the zero state is first to start listening to inspiration. Most of the time we are operating from memory. So he says over here, there are two ways to live your life. Dr. Hewlin explains, from memory or from inspiration. So let us not focus on getting to the zero state now. First, let us focus on allowing the inspiration in. So let us clear the clutter, clear operating from the memory and start operating from inspiration. Get out of the patterns which are there in our life and start living life originally. If you see a child, the child has an aha moment every moment of its life. Why? Because it is living in a state which is inspired, which is the zero state. There is innocence in the child. But as we start growing, we start operating out of memory. That guy did this to me, or this is the way that I did this, and because of that, it was better for me to do it. So we start operating out of a rut, and that is what we need to get out. So we can do the same thing, okay, but it needs to come from inspiration and not from memory. This is what he's talking about here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does this mean it's like a samadhi, not nirvikalp samadhi?
No, see, samadhi is not an act. What he's talking about here is an active state. It is not a state where you are not active. So when you go into that state, you're very, very cognitive. You are doing what needs to be done, but you are doing out of inspiration. You're not doing it out of memory. So there's a shift in the way that you're doing something. Okay. Yeah. Now, if you can say that I can maintain that samadhi state even while operating in the world, then that is exactly what this is talking about.
Nirvikal samadhi, I mean, you can maintain, but your prarabdha brings you back.
Correct.
That's
now,
why
I
you
don't
come
know
back.
the technical terms. I don't know the technical terms about this, but I mean, from the Vedantic principle, because I've just started listening to the Gita and all that recently, but the fact of the matter is to have that conscious awareness, that is, and then we are acting. We are operating out of inspiration and not out of memory. Basically, that's the game that we are playing over here. Yes, Raghuji, you want to say something? Raghuji, you want to say something?
I think we need to let go of what we know and try to compare with what we are reading. Then we completely
No,
miss
it's
the-
all right, Raghuji. This is what we are doing in awareness. We need to clear. Okay.
No, I know, but somewhere we miss the message totally.
No, it's all
According to,
right.
I'm
It's
just
all
it's
right.
my
It's all
humble
right.
submission.
Okay, let me handle that. Yes, Anju?
Yeah, I have understood three things just now from this paragraph.
Yes.
Is listen to your own inspiration.
Again,
clear
it is
the
not your
clutter.
own inspiration.
Then
If it was your own inspiration, then where are you operating from?
from memory again.
So
Okay,
then,
okay.
how is
Understood.
it your own?
Okay. Listen to the inspiration. Okay.
Correct.
Clear the clutter
Correct.
in your mind.
Correct.
And third point, I understood it. Stop operating from the memories.
Yeah. So the idea is that it's not going to happen tomorrow. Okay.
Yes,
So
I
whenever we are
understand.
doing,
But these are the 3 points we need to focus.
so the
Constantly be aware of them.
so the 3 places that we can operate from, the first is that we can operate from memory. Okay.
Okay.
The second is that we can operate from inspiration.
Yeah.
The third is that we can operate from zero.
Okay.
And all of us are aspiring to get from memory to zero.
Huh.
Samajh gaya?
Okay.
Most of us, including me, are just now operating from memory. But we get those flashes where we start operating from inspiration, and even less flashes where we start operating from zero.
Okay.
So the idea is to reduce the memory, increase the zero.
Okay. And zero.
What? You are muted.
Zero is no thought state.
Again,
No
zero
memory
is zero. Zero is zero.
Zero is zero.
Exactly.
Then what is zero? Okay.
That is what we are attempting to get to. Na? Pehle inspiration में तो
Okay.
आए, उसके बाद zero का
All
बात करें.
right. Okay. All right.
Okay. Yes, Ruchira.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, this zero state means stillness. Does that mean stillness? in the
Again,
mind?
let us drop that. And I guess Raghuji was correct in that manner. The first stage that we need to connect to is inspiration. Are you inspired to do something, or are you operating out of memory? Start becoming aware of it.
But without inspiration, how will your life go? You need to have inspiration to do any work in your life, Without
One
inspiration.
second. Understand the distinction, please. And when you are talking, switch your video on. So the point here is that most of the time we are operating from memory. Okay. Some of the time you are inspired to do something, which is not the regular way that you would be doing something. Now, if I can still my mind and not operate from memory and start actually operating from inspiration, then life becomes a little different, because you really don't know what you're going to do next. When you operate from memory, there's a plan in place. You know what you're going to do next. When you operate from inspiration, you don't know what you're going to do next.
Achha. So I was thinking inspiration actually leads you, your memory is like a backseat, because you can't be thinking about everything. So when you get inspired, like I want to read this book, so suddenly it's got down to me to read this book. Inspiration hua tabhi to aage badhe. Aur memory-
Correct, but was it a memory? You did not know about the book previously, right?
But somebody told me about this book, like you told. So it was there.
So now
but
that
I
is an
didn't know it.
inspiration. That is an inspiration.
Achha.
You were inspired to do it and you acted, right? You did not have a memory of the book. You did not know about the book.
I was not
So
knowing.
someone inspired you, so you operated out of inspiration. You could have ignored the inspiration and not picked up the book also.
Achha. Okay.
So when something comes into your awareness, where is it coming from? Is it coming from memory, or is it coming from somewhere else? So there's a very thin line dividing it, and you have to be aware of it. That's the name of the game. That is what we are playing. Okay, that's the game we are playing. Now, again, I'm repeating. Why am I telling you join the workshop? Because you will understand these concepts, because you will experience it. Then you will get an understanding. Here you are intellectually trying to understand it without any experience. So it becomes difficult to understand.
Okay.
Okay.
When I worked at the mental hospital and would look at patients' charts, he told us, I would feel pain inside me. This was a shared memory. It was a program that caused the patients to act the way they did. They had no control. They were caught up in a program. As I felt the program, I cleaned.
So now this is a very important thing that he has come up with. As I would look at the patient's charts, I would feel their pain inside me. And as I cleared the pain in me, it cleared the program that they were running from. Now, where is a program running from? It is running from memory. And as I clear the memory, when I clean the program, I allow or I create space for inspiration to come in. Now, if there is no space, if my hard disk of my computer is totally full, can I put another program into the computer? It is not possible. So until I clear the space in my computer, I cannot put another program in. So what he's saying clearly here is that I cleared the program that they were operating from and created the space to put in another program.
Cleaning became the recurring theme. He told us a variety of ways to clean, most of which I can't explain here because they are confidential. You have to attend a Ho'oponopono workshop to learn them all. See www.ho'oponopono.org. But here is the method of cleaning Dr. Hewlin used the most and still uses, and the one I use today. They are simply 4 statements that you can say over and over non-stop, addressing them to the divine.
Now, over here, he says a very, very important thing, and which is what, according to me, most people forget. Okay. So he says over here, there are 4 simple statements that you say over and over non-stop, addressing them to divinity. It is not addressing anyone else. You are addressing divinity to clear you, right? You're not clearing the other person. So please understand this concept. Most of the people who start doing Ho'oponopono, they start attempting to clear the other person. The game over here is not to clear the other person. It is to clear yourself. And you are requesting for help from divinity to clear you. So you are literally not clearing yourself. You're asking divinity to clear you. I think we can stop here.
Niket, can you show this in a diagram?
1 second.